We're here today on Country Pocket with Hal Odell. The new album is Pieces of the Truth, and you just heard $4 Wheat, a song in which he very appropriate for the theme, says nothing stands still. Um, so in this particular song, we have a farmer who just isn't able to make it farming anymore. Um, when you chose you obviously write an awful lot of songs, have other people release quite a few of your songs. When you were choosing work for this album, uh, how did you select what you were going to include?
You know, first off, I uh, tried to stick to songs that hadn't been released by other artists because my intention behind this was to get those songs out there that hadn't been previously heard, and then after that to have them brought to life in line with how I heard those songs. You know, as a songwriter, you become um, comfortable and hopefully adept at trying to fit songs into the artist's palette, and then seeing that artist take that song and transform it into their song. In an ideal world, they feel ownership of that song. So it was nice to put the artist hat back on and try to paint these songs the way I see them painted. But as far as picking them, um, thematically, I mostly write songs about loss and uncertainty and pain and working through that. And so, to be honest, I really just tried to group the strongest songs that I had unreleased and the songs that meant the most to me. Um, I guess I'm more thematically unified than my songs were intentionally chosen to be that way.
Well, you definitely deal a lot with change, and we are in sort of a time when a lot of things are changing. You get into the way things are changing for a farmer on this track. Um, from where you are, do you see a lot of disruption in those traditional American industries, those ways of life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here in Oklahoma City, and so out here in the flyover part of the world, we do see a lot of change, and agriculture has been changing for 100 years. Um, but living in a state that gets a lot of sun and a lot of wind and usually enough water to farm, the farmers and ranchers here are always seem to feel one bad year away or 2 bad years away, and I'm not personally a farmer or rancher, but have friends that were raised doing that and raised on family farms, and so I'm really trying to bring to life some of the experiences and stories that they've told me.
Yeah, you've got these powerful instances of them not necessarily being able to make it. In this song, the character uh, sort of comes to the conclusion he holds the rich in the palm of his hand. That essentially there are people who have things set up for them and people who don't. Um, I felt for the farmer, especially the way he was willing to go into debt to keep things going. And even after it doesn't work out, he still misses it.
Yeah, I think the one big thing that money brings is insulation from problems. And so, with enough money behind you, you are protected from that bad year, those bad years, that lost crop. Um, this character didn't have those things, and he paid the price in the loss of his farm.
Yeah, you have that on Kiowa County to start things off. He's selling his land over to someone else and says, "It won't be yours any more than it was mine." Explain that.
You know, so much of Oklahoma, particularly western Oklahoma, if you drive around, you can see the remnants of so many homesteaded farms that have now been incorporated into bigger farms and are now, if they're not overtly torn down, they're just rotted and falling down. And so it feels very transitory to think that these people came out here and built what they may have felt like was a permanent life, only to see that culture of small family farms and ranches be replaced by these large commercial endeavors. Um, but the land carries on, and so the ownership they felt was transitory, and that's, I guess, his warning to whoever's replacing him is that you, you can stamp all the marks on it you want to stamp all the marks on it you want to, you'll be gone, and the land will be the land.
Yeah, there. Do you feel like this story, the one you're telling about these farms, do you feel like it's actually being told on a national level in the larger conversation? When you get into the whole when you get into the whole discussion of the national environment, there's an awful lot of Donald Trump and horse race politics, but not necessarily uh, stuff like this where you see people's lives come undone and maybe the motivation for those larger culture shifts start showing up.
Well, from a musical perspective, how long has Farm Aid been going on? 25 years, maybe. You know, the family farm has a sort of a romantic character to it, and so I do think that story gets told, but it's just one piece of the bigger story, which is that, like you said, nothing stands still. As I started off the $4 wheat with, the we see it now with this onrush of AI driven changes, and jobs that were good jobs 5 years ago are obsolete. And, you know, people that are wholly dependent on those things are swallowed up, and they have no choice but to change. And these farmers and ranchers have had to adapt and try to make money as they can, or sell and move on.
Why is it that you choose to focus on this uncertainty and loss first and foremost?
I don't know. I do uh, live in that world thematically. I know. I don't know. It just feels so real to me. Um, Loss is universal and change is universal, but we get sold this idea that you know it's going to be fine. You'll adapt. It's going to, if you, if you believe and you work, and everything's going to be great. But to me, looking, people don't feel that way necessarily. We feel uncertainty and we're afraid. And I love people that are afraid that push ahead anyway. Push ahead without a promise of, if you check all the right boxes, it'll all work out in the end. Because we don't know. And so it's not that I um, like to write songs about loss and failure, but I like to write songs that feel true. And I like to write songs that feel true, and it feels true to have that uncertainty, and we all have to walk through that every day.
We it's not just the economic losses you're talking about. You have scenes of farewell on your album. So how does that fit in to the world you're writing in? The idea that it's not just some external forces, but things can fall apart right in front of your face as well.
Oh, absolutely. Even within this uh, economic world of loss, when the songs about losing the family ranch or the family farm, it's not just the economic loss; it's the loss of a community. It's a loss of a you know nuclear family and the relationships, and you know I would argue that we all live at some level in a small community of the circle in which we move, and you know in the case of $4 wheat, this guy was connected to the ground and to his community and the people in that community and to the comings and goings of the seasons and the changes in the crop from season to season. And you can see at the end of that song, his loss is that he's now divorced from that world in which he lived, and so yeah, it's money, it's people, it's the things that you inhabit in your life. The structure of your life is lost or can be lost with any change, good or bad.
Yeah. In funeral song, um,
Funeral tune.
sorry, funeral tune. I think you get a little bit meta and start talking about sort of the heaviness of some words. And I I'm wondering if maybe that's a little look inside your head as you're writing some of these stories and dealing with the heaviness of the words that you're, crafting your life on.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. When you first start out songwriting, you almost exclusively pull directly from your own life. And then because your life is, my life is relatively finite, you run out of your own experiences and you start drawing on the things you see around you. But but you never stop drawing on your own experiences as a way to express those things. And so, yeah, there's some autobiographical things in Funeral Tune, and part of it is wrestling with these ideas and not wanting to wrestle with these ideas and not wanting to face the fact that loss is real or loss has occurred. It was interesting. You asked me, when we were talking before the show about this idea of letting go and loss, and the character in Funeral Tune is struggling because he hasn't let go. Um, the woman in the song who experienced her own loss of the life that she had has let go of him, and he's left not knowing how to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, and I'd argue $4 wheat. That guy hasn't fully let go of the the life he had. Maybe in Kiowa County you have a little bit of a deep breath, a realization that it's on to the next chapter, but a lot of the people in your songs are not having the easiest time letting go.
No, it's funny. The Ben Jarrell and Ryan Hartman were the producers of this album, and Ben Jarrell is an artist that I've written for many years, and he had actually recorded $4 Wheat and didn't like how it had ended up. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and so he never released it, or as of yet. But we talk about his version and my version, and his version is sad, and my version is angry. Because no, the guy, you're right that the character in that song has not come to terms with his loss.
Yeah, yeah, that's I think a really key part of the story, both that you're trying to tell and that you just see in America right now, whether it's, I don't know, social media, the news, there is that anger. And don't get me wrong, I ascribe a lot of that anger to, people, whether it's a social media company or a politician benefiting from having the anger. But I also see that anger as being a very legitimate thing because we're losing, we're losing things
Well,
and they're not coming back. And you're either you're either saying, "Oh well, I'll move on," or you're going to be hurting for a very long time over these losses. And the characters you presented, they aren't necessarily wrong in their diagnoses of what caused the problem, how serious the problem is, but I think they might be wrong in their diagnoses that it can be reversed.
no question, no question. Um, and you see that to some extent politically today. This um, idealizing the past. Oh, we're gonna get things back to the way they were. Well, without really wanting to look at the way things were in totality. You. But even if you wanted to go back, the past is gone. Um, and the to me, the anger is not the primary emotion. The anger is a response to a large extent to fear, and it's fear of that unknown, fear of the loss of this world that we think we live in. And you know, I don't think people change very much, and I'm not sure we're going through things that are different, truthfully, than have been gone through throughout civilization. But the rate of change is so rapid now, and we're not. I don't think we're equipped to keep up. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Let's hear Funeral Tune. Let's hear Hide the Whiskey, and we'll be back with Hal Odell.